You sit across from a friend. They're talking about the same weekend plans, the same gossip, the same frustrations. You smile, you nod, but internally it's like you're not even there. Not because you're absent, because you're somewhere else entirely. Different frequency. And that's the part nobody warns you about. The more conscious you become, the lonelier it can feel, at least at first. So why does this happen? Why do people start to drain you the more you grow? It's not because you're antisocial. And it's not that you hate people. This is not awakening. It is individuation, a process where the real self starts to emerge from beneath the roles you've been playing. But growth like that always has a cost. Most people wear a mask not to deceive but to survive. That mask is called the persona. The version of yourself that fits in. The version that pleases, adapts, and avoids discomfort. We wear it at work, at dinner tables, even with friends. And for a while that mask feels like safety. It makes you feel loved, accepted, understood. But awakening begins when that mask starts to crack. You begin to question everything. And suddenly you see it. Most of your relationships weren't built around your true self. They were built around the role you played. So when the role dissolves, some connections can't survive because the old you isn't there anymore to meet them. And here's where it gets heavy. Your nervous system is still wired to play the old role. You walk into a room and instinctively shrink, perform, entertain, or appease. But your soul wants none of it anymore. This tension between who you were and who you're becoming, that's what drains you. Not the people, the pretending. Awakening is about reconnecting to yourself so deeply. You stop betraying your energy just to belong, not cutting people off. And this is where the concept of the shadow enters. The shadow isn't evil. It's not even negative. It's just unseen. It's everything you were told not to be. Your anger, your jealousy, your fear, but also your brilliance, your intuition, your untamed knowing. The shadow is your lost power waiting to be reclaimed. As you awaken, you start to see it even in others, and it's overwhelming. What once felt like casual conversations now feels loaded with unconscious tension. You sense what people aren't saying. You hear the pain beneath their words. You feel their masks pressing against yours. And you realize most human interactions are between two masks. Two personas trying to stay liked, avoid discomfort, and keep the peace. But once you awaken, you can't play that game anymore because your body literally rejects the false. Feels heavy, like suffocating in a room without windows. You need truth like oxygen. And now only authenticity feeds you. And here's where it gets personal. You begin to recognize your shadow in others. That friend who always needs to be right, maybe that was you once. That colleague who constantly seeks validation, maybe that's a part of you still healing. The people who trigger you the most are often mirrors reflecting the parts of yourself that haven't yet been fully integrated. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. And it's uncomfortable because awakening shows you the truth in layers. First, it seems like others are the problem. Then you realize you were just like them. Then you understand that you still are, but you're evolving. You're choosing awareness, and that's what makes the difference. But awakening also comes with a hidden trap, the spiritual ego, the temptation to believe that you're the awakened one while everyone else is still asleep. But that's just another mask. True awakening means extending compassion to yourself, to others, and to the version of you who once relied on those old roles just to survive. It's through that compassion that healing begins, that the exhaustion fades, and that your energy stops being used to defend yourself and starts being used to honor who you are. And here's what happens next. As you integrate more of your shadow, you don't need to keep so much distance anymore because you're no longer fighting your reflection in others. But what is the link between awakening and emotional sensitivity? And why does your nervous system play a much bigger role than you might think? If you've ever felt too sensitive, too empathetic, or too aware, this may change the way you see yourself. Awakening is also physiological. Your nervous system is going through an upgrade, and it has consequences. For much of your life, your body adapted to chaos, tension, noise, and emotional dissonance. You learn to stay alert, scan the room, smooth things over, and read the energy. Especially if you're a highly sensitive person, this became your way to survive. You absorbed people, not just listened to them. You didn't just notice moods, you felt them. You became a sponge for emotional weather, and over time that takes a serious toll. Awakening turns the volume up. You start sensing dissonance, misalignment, manipulation, even when it's subtle or unintentional. You pick up on what isn't said, on micro-expressions, energy mismatches. And your nervous system doesn't yet know how to process all this. It hasn't caught up with your expanded consciousness, so it defaults to old patterns. Tension, fatigue, overwhelm, and the urge to withdraw. And this is the part most people don't talk about. Awakening doesn't always feel like sitting peacefully on a mountaintop. It often feels like sensory overload in a crowded room. Even normal conversations can feel like mental static if your body hasn't learned how to regulate in this new sensitivity. This leads many awakened people to think there's something wrong with them. But you're not broken. You're simply not numb anymore. You're finally feeling what's always been there, no longer filtered by conditioning. And that can be exhausting. You're accurately sensitive. You're finally tuned into life in its rawest form. But as your nervous system learns to sync with your higher awareness, the overload fades. Emotional waves settle. You start to sense without absorbing. You feel with others, not for them. You observe without taking it personally. And this is when social interaction becomes sacred again. You stay grounded in your own energy and let others be where they are. The moment you stop performing, everything changes. You no longer choose relationships out of survival. You choose them based on resonance. You stop people pleasing to avoid conflict. You honor your truth even when it's uncomfortable. You no longer stay just to be liked. You stay where you feel seen. It's subtle but powerful. Instead of looking for safety in others, you become the safety you used to need. That integration is the goal of psychological wholeness. That means bringing together your conscious self, your unconscious patterns, your shadow, your light, your wounds, your wisdom. All of it. Not to be flawless, but to be real. And from that realness, your relationships shift. You start to attract people who speak your energetic language, who don't drain you because they're not asking you to shrink, who don't project their pain onto you, but make space for yours too. These are soul-aligned connections, and they often appear after a season of solitude. That solitude was your field clearing itself, preparing the ground, resetting your boundaries. During awakening, it's normal to feel like something's wrong because you can't connect to people like you used to. But it means you're not supposed to connect the same way anymore. You're meant to connect from a deeper place now. From presence, from alignment, from truth. And that changes everything. You stop adjusting your energy to avoid discomfort. You let your peace set the tone. You stop trying to prove your worth. You live it. You stop connecting from guilt. You connect from choice. And this doesn't make you cold. It makes your love stronger because it's no longer filtered through fear. And yes, some people will fall away because they were only aligned with a version of you that you've now outgrown. Grieving those connections is part of the awakening. Every ending becomes an opening. And every person who stays or enters your life after this point meets the real you. The one beyond the persona beneath the performance. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And this fatigue you felt, this disconnection, this hypersensitivity, they're all part of that privilege. Because the true gift of awakening is about reclaiming your own inner space so completely that no one can pull you out of it again. So if you're in that strange phase where you feel tired of people, tired of noise, tired of pretending, trust it. That means you're waking up, and when you come out the other side, you'll live differently. The loneliness you feel is a sign that your perception has expanded beyond the roles, games, and emotional contracts most people still operate under. You lost the illusion of connection. You lost the false comfort of pretending to be someone you no longer are. This kind of solitude is the absence of noise. It's the clarity that comes when you no longer force yourself to fit into conversations that drain your energy or into relationships that depend on your compliance. You used to call that belonging, but what you called home was often just a system of emotional survival. The pain of being alone now is real, but so is the freedom. Hurts, yes, but it's clean pain. Unconscious people don't leave you because you're wrong. They distance themselves because your energy stops validating their narrative. You no longer play the role they assign to you. And without that, the dynamic collapses. Your silence feels like judgment to them. Your presence becomes too still, too reflective. You don't need to say anything. Your mere existence starts to expose what they're trying to avoid in themselves. This is energetic. Vibration mismatch is real. When you no longer participate in gossip, drama, or emotional dependence, others feel it. It unsettles them. They sense the shift even if they can't explain it. And many will pull away not because you pushed them, but because they can't hold the mirror you now represent. Your calm disturbs their chaos. Your stillness exposes their restlessness. Your detachment threatens their control. You are no longer a character in their story. And that removal breaks the emotional script they were unconsciously following. That's why people disappear. That's why invitations stop coming. It's not that they hate you. It's that your presence stopped reinforcing who they think they are. When someone operates from the ego, they need you to play your part. Whether it's the fixer, the listener, the scapegoat, or the entertainer, there was a role. And when you step out of that role, the entire structure shakes. Many won't say it directly, but the reason they avoid you now is simple. Your energy no longer makes them feel safe in their delusion. You represent change, and change is uncomfortable, especially for those still clinging to the familiar, even if the familiar is toxic. So if you feel alone, misunderstood, disconnected, know this. You are not falling behind. You are being refined. The path of awakening cuts attachments that no longer serve your reality. It clears noise so that real connection can finally find you. You didn't walk away from them. You just stopped pretending. And the cost of truth is always the comfort of illusion.